Hello students and welcome to the lecture. So students, as we know that we are covering the schedule and the tribal areas, right? That is a topic on which we have been discussing right now. And basically within this particular series of the schedules and tribals, within this particular series, these all are the topics that we had scheduled for the discussion, right? Like starting with the introduction part, then the scheduled areas in India, an overview of it, then the criteria for identification of scheduled areas, right? Constitutional provisions and the governance, right? Concerns related to the scheduled areas, right? Administration of scheduled areas, scheduled tribes, general concerns of the tribal community, addressing the challenges, significance of the indigenous communities, problems being faced by the tribal groups, the conclusion, and the administration of the tribal areas, right? So these were the topics that we had scheduled for the discussion under this particular series. If we talk about the topics we have covered so far, we have done with the introduction part. We have done with the scheduled areas in India and overview of it. We have done with the criteria for the identification of scheduled areas. We have done with the constitutional provisions and the governance. And we have done with the concerns that are related to the scheduled areas. Okay. So these are the topics that we had covered so far. If we talk about the topic on which we have been discussing, so this is the administration of the scheduled areas. Okay. This is the topic on which we have been discussing right now. If we talk about the topics that we are, you can say, left with, then these are the scheduled tribes, general concerns of the tribal community, addressing the challenges, significance of the indigenous communities, problems that are being faced by the tribal groups, conclusion, and the administration of tribal areas, right? So this is the picture that we have created so far altogether. All right. Basically, in this lecture, we will start from where we had left in the previous one. Like, in the previous lecture, when we were discussing the schedule in the tribal areas, so we had started the administration of the scheduled areas, right? That is what we had started. Basically, in this, we had discussed the area that has been declared as a scheduled area. Okay, that would be treated differently from the other areas in the country, or you can say other mainstream areas. Why? Because these areas are generally the home of the aboriginals, right? Aboriginals. And as we know, the aboriginals generally the ones who originally inhabited the land, who were originally living there. We had discussed that this was a word that had been originated from the Australian continent. Why? Because the Australia in the previous time had so many ethnic groups, indigenous communities, but when the Britishers reached there, like they came to India, all right. So basically they destroyed the culture, local culture, you can say, destroyed the local tribes, and basically they established their own rule, like what they did with India. Okay. And aboriginals in Hindi we know as Adivasi. Okay, we known as Adivasi when we talk about the Hindi term. Okay, aboriginals are generally the socially and the economically backwards. Why? Because the reasons we had discussed in details in the previous lecture. So if you have revised the previous lecture, then you would be aware about it. Okay. And because since the starting they had been neglected for the years, so that's why they could not be pulled back to the conditions, or the improvement could be seen in the conditions just by the ordinary or normal means. They requires the special efforts, okay, so that their condition could be improved. Alright. Therefore, we can say the whole of the normal administrative machinery, that is operating in a state, okay, normally in the state, that is not extended to the scheduled areas. Okay. Why? Because we know the state government is not only responsible to uplift the scheduled and the tribal people, but it is also responsible for the other subjects or the mainstream medias. Okay. And second reason was the uniformity. Like I had told you, in India there are total 10 states that having the scheduled and the tribal areas as per the schedule 5, and there are total 4 states that are having the schedule and the tribal areas as per schedule 6, right? That is what we know. So here you can see total, if we add them, so this would become 14 states. How many states are there? 14 states are there that having the population of scheduled and the tribal people. And that makes us really difficult if we give power to the state governments, okay, to look after the scheduled areas, to make the laws and administer the kind of things like they generally do in the mainstream medias. So basically, ensuring the uniformity in the governance of these areas would be a difficult task. That would be a difficult task. Why? Because one state would have the different provisions, another state would have the different provisions. Alright? And because of this, again, the internal conflict between the improvement of the scheduled and tribal areas, that would become another concern that we really do not want. Okay? That's why the central government occupies the powers through which they could implement the provisions, they could make the policies, and even they could look after the scheduled areas with greater responsibility when we compare it with the state government and the state government power regarding the governance of that particular state. Why? Because when the central government will enter the picture, automatically the central government will ensure the uniformity. That is the foremost task. Okay? Because uniformity is required the must when the policies are to be implemented. Okay? However, you can say on the basis of socially and backwardness, socially and economically backwardness, on the basis of this, even the central government could make the different policies. Like you can say, suppose if there are 5 areas, A, B, C, D, E, all of these are the scheduled and the tribal areas. All of these are the scheduled and the tribal areas. Okay. So basically, on the basis of socially and economically backward factors, when the government tried to estimate it, they found like basically A, B, C, these areas are more socially and economically forward, not backward. What I'm saying, forward. Or you can say sound. They are more socially and economically sound when we compare it with the other areas of D and C. Okay. So then the level of policies, the level of interference and other kind of special attention that would be given to the area D and E, that would be different from the area of A, B, C. Okay, because A, B, C are more empowered socially and economically when they compared with the D and E. Okay, so even the central government's policy could be vary when it comes to the management of the schedule and the tribal areas. Got it? Now, if we move forward within this topic, if we go forward, if we further talk about the administration of the scheduled areas, then we can say the various features of the administrations that are contained in the 5th schedule. Okay, and total how many states the 5th schedule deals with? The 5th schedule basically deals with the 10 states of India that having the schedule and the tribal areas as per the official notification in the Gazette of India. Got it? So if we talk about it, then we can say the first is the declaration of the scheduled area. Like how an area could be declared as a scheduled area. Because the foremost step in this process is that if the policies, if the special attention, if the important provisions are to be applicable, are to be given to the scheduled areas, So first of all, the first step that comes here is the declaration part. How an area could be declared as a scheduled area. Okay, that is the first thing. If we talk about it, then how an area could be declared as a scheduled area. So first remember the precedent. Or let me tell you an procedure first. Like I had already told you about the procedure, but here I'm going to revise it for you. Okay. So how this all becomes or begins, you can say. First, the state government of the respective state is required to look after an area. Okay. Follow the criteria that we had formulated for the eligibility of any area to be between any schedule in the tribal areas. Okay. First is the state government will take a charge. Second, the state government will do you can say survey and review. Okay. And then the state government will forward a formal request to the central government. Okay. When the central government will take up the request or receive the request, then the central government will check the eligibility of the area that has been, you can say, promoted to become a scheduled in tribal area as per the given standards or the criteria. And the criteria is population threshold. Okay, like certain population percentage must be crossed. Okay, and when the state government satisfied, like okay, this kind of things are there, and that could be declared as a scheduled area. When the central government will justify, then the central government will forward the request to the president. Okay. When the president will receive the request, then the president will consult it with the governor of that particular state. For example, if the state government of XYZ state had formulated a request, so the president will consult with the governor of XYZ in that matter. All right. And when the president satisfied after the, and when the president becomes satisfied that okay, all the conditions are matching right. Okay. And even after the consultation, the president finds all the facts and figures are accurate. Then the president will declare an area as a scheduled area. Okay. So here you can say, like, the president is the one who is empowered to declare an area to be the scheduled area. Okay, like the initiator is the state government, the mediator is the union government, but the final declaration would come from the president. Okay, until or unless the president declares an area, scheduled area, the area could not become a scheduled area. All right. And not only the president is empowered to declare the area as a scheduled area, but he could also increase or decrease its area. He could also increase or decrease its area, could also alter the boundary lines, okay, and even rescind such designations or make fresh orders for redesignation on an area in consultation with the governor of the state concerned. Okay, so you can say, suppose if any area was declared as a scheduled area by the president, the size of the area was 10 kilometers. For example, the size of the area was 10 kilometers. Okay, then what the president did, in the next order, the president increased the area of that scheduled area. Okay, like previously it was of 10 kilometers, now it's become 15 kilometers. So how many kilometers added? 5 kilometers added. Okay, then he could increase. Second is decrease. Second is decrease. Okay, so you can say previously the area was of 15 kilometers. Previously the area was of 15 kilometers. All right. Then the president reduces the area by 5 kilometers and now the area becomes 10 kilometers. Okay. So it means that the president is not only declaring the area as a scheduled area, but also increasing or decreasing the size. Alter the boundary lines. What is the meaning of this? For example, you can say previously, if the area was Y, okay, and the boundary lines were touching X or Z, okay, then what the president did? The president merged the Y and Z and gave the name Z, okay. Then the boundary line of X that was previously touching with Y, now it will be touching with Z, okay. Got it? If not, then again I'm repeating. Suppose there are three areas, X, Y, Z. Okay, how many areas? Three areas are there. Okay, X boundary touching with Y, Y boundaries touching with Z, Y was in the middle. Got it? Then what happened? Later on, the president merged both the lines. Okay, it means later the president merged Y and Z. Okay, and gave the name Z. Then basically Z is now touching the boundary of X. Got it? So now instead of three areas, now there are two areas. Got it? That is the thing. Alright. So even it could alter the boundaries. Thereafter, resin. What is the meaning of resin? What is the meaning of resin? This is the question for you. To answer this question, you will have 30 seconds to think and answer. Alright. So your time is going to be start now. Your time starts now. Just think about it. Ten seconds have been passed off. Last 20s are remaining. Just think about it. Alright, the last 10 seconds are there. Okay, the times. Alright, so the correct answer is revocation. Okay, revocation you can say. Rescind means when some orders were repealed and revoked. Okay, so basically, if the president has declared any area as a scheduled area, so that would be called as a designation. That would be called a designation. Why? Because the area that was previously an ordinary area, or you can say that was previously a mainstream area, later on with the president's declaration, that would declared or designated as an scheduled and tribal area. That was declared as an scheduled and the tribal area. Got it? That was the thing. Alright. And basically, if the president wants, then even he could revoke or rescind such kind of definition. Okay. So you can say, suppose in the year of 2001, the president declared the area as an scheduled and the tribal area. 10 years later, in the year of 2011, the president revokes the designation, rescinded the designation, and now that area that was once declared as a scheduled and tribal area, now it is only the area or mainstream area, ordinary area, whatever you can say. So first, like the president could even rescind or revoke the designation. Second is, could make the fresh orders for such redesignations. Okay, like you can say, there are two aspects. First aspect is redesignation. It means that suppose in the year of 2001, any area was declared as a scheduled and tribal area. 10 years later, in 2011, the designation was revoked by the president. The area was become ordinary area. 5 years later, in the year of 2015, again the president declared the area as a scheduled area. Okay, so that would be called a redesignation. Okay, that is the first aspect. Second is when the boundaries are altering, increasing or decreasing. So you can say in the 2001, when the area was became the scheduled and tribal area, its boundary was 15 kilometers. How much? 15 kilometers. Okay. 10 years later, the president reduces the boundary up to 5 kilometers. Now it will become only the length of 5 kilometers. Okay. Then again, the designation is going to change. First, the designation area was of 10 kilometers. Now the designation area was only 5 kilometers. So that would also count under the redesignation on an area. But that would be done in consultation with the governor of that particular state. Okay, it means consult of the governor of that state is must and required. Without consulting the governor of that state, no action could be taken by the president alone. Second is the executive powers of state and centers regarding this. Okay, so if we talk about it, then we can say the executive power of a state extend to the scheduled areas therein. Like we know, there are the three power divisions in the normal governance structure. First is legislature making power. Second is executive power. Third is judiciary powers. Okay, legislative powers. You can say executive powers and judiciary powers. Legislature means making the rules and regulations. Got it? Thereafter, the next is executive means implementing those rules and regulations. Judiciary is the different next. Okay. So basically, if we talk about the executive power, it means that if we talk about the implementation of the various rules and regulations. So basically, in such a case, the state government having the power. It means the state machinery and the state government is entitled to implement the rules and regulations in the scheduled area. But in this matter of executive powers, the state governor is having the more, or you can say the special kind of responsibility. Why? Because he is required to submit the report to the President of India regarding the administration of such areas. Usually that report has been submitted annually, but there is a provision like whenever the president wants to look after it, the president could call for the report. There is no some special kind of things that only after the year the report would be submitted. It is totally depend upon the president. Whenever the president wants to see the report, he could ask for the report. That's why the governors having the special kind of responsibility in administration of these areas. Okay. If we talk about the central government, then remember the executive power of the central also extend to giving directions to the state regarding the administration of such areas. Okay. Regarding the administration of such areas. Got it? Thereafter, TACs, tribal advisory councils, we have already discussed it. Okay. Like each state is having scheduled area has to establish a tribes advisory council. Okay. If any state having the scheduled area, it's become compulsory for it to establish the tribal advisory council to advise on the welfare and the advancement of the scheduled tribes. If we talk about this council, we know that consists of the 20 members. Maximum 3/4 of them must be representatives of the tribes in the state legislative assembly. Okay. A similar council can also be established in a state having the scheduled tribes, but not the scheduled areas therein if the president so directs. Okay. So usually the tribal advisory council would be established in a state by the state government when the state having the scheduled areas. But there is a special case. Suppose if the state does not having any scheduled area because of the, you can say eligibility criteria, but the state having the scheduled tribes. Even then the state could establish the tribal advisory council. In such a things, the president's directions are must and required. Okay. And the seats for women are received 1/3. Okay. After this, next is laws that are applicable to these scheduled areas. What are the laws? Governor is basically empowered to direct any matter, any particular act of parliament or the state legislature does not apply to the scheduled area or apply with specified modification and exceptions. Okay. It means that the governor could declare any law of the central government or the state government, okay, null and void, and even modified it with some exceptions, okay, when it is to be applied in the scheduled areas. Moreover, he could also make regulations for the peace and the good government of the scheduled areas. For it will consider or consult with the Tribal Advisory Council. Like the expertise of Tribal Advisory Council would be taken into the consideration. Such regulations may prohibit or restrict the transfer of land by or among members of the scheduled tribes. It regulates the allotment of land to the members of the scheduled tribes and regulates the business of money lending in relation to the scheduled tribes so that the special attention could be given. Also, regulation may be repeal or amend any act of parliament or state legislature that is applicable to the scheduled areas, but regarding this, the assent of the president is also required. Without his assent, nothing could be happened. Okay. Here are some facts. The first is the Constitution requires the president to appoint a commission to report on the administration of the scheduled areas and welfare of the scheduled tribes in the state. He can appoint such commission at any time, but basically, generally, it is compulsory to attempt it after the 10 years of the commencement of the Constitution. Okay. Hence, the commission was first appointed in 1950 because for the first time the Constitution was implemented in the year of 1950. The first commission that was appointed, that was headed by the UN Debor. Okay. And basically the commission submitted the report after a year in 1961. Okay. Thereafter, 4 decades later, the second commission was appointed in the year of 2002. And who was the chairman? Dilip Singh Bhuria, like we know the Bhuria Commission already, and who submitted the report in 2004. So these are some important facts and figures that are written down over here. So students, basically in this lecture, we have finished till here. In the next lecture, we will continue from here. Till then, revise the facts and figures, and thank you.